is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman back at it again with another video. I've tried very hard to hold off on this video topic because I've wanted the dust to settle completely with free agency, but there are still guys out there that are refusing to sign. I'm sure it's going to take them a while longer. I ain't waiting anymore. So here are going to be my official winners and losers of free agency. I'm not even sure if any of the signings that could happen in the future would make that much of an impact on this video, to be honest. Before we get into it, of course, I have to give a shout out to my partner Thrive Fantasy. If you're interested in sports betting, specifically on player props, check out Thrive. You can bet on more than just the NFL. There's the NHL, the MLB, the NBA, golf, MMA. I mean, you can bet on anything across the board. The best part is, though, if you sign up using the link down in the description and use code CAVE, C-A-V-E, you get a 100% deposit match. And more often than not, they typically have some sort of promotion going on for new users, so you can get a free leg for like LeBron James over half a point, for an example. It does help me out. The link is down in the description if you're interested. Use code CAVE. Let's get into the winners and losers. To address the elephant in the room quickly, I'm wearing my glasses, which I would imagine you probably didn't even know I had because I am getting evaluated for LASIK eye surgery soon, so they didn't want me wearing my contacts. I'm not enjoying the look, but there's that. Starting off with the winners of free agency, this doesn't just have to be a team. It can be a positional group. It can be a player specifically. But I am going to start with the team. It's going to be the Detroit Lions. I thought they've knocked the last few weeks out of the park. The biggest losses of free agency included Jamal Williams signing with the Saints, Evan Brown, one of their offensive linemen, going to the Seahawks, and then DJ Chark signing with the Panthers. But they did a good job of finding replacements, signing David Montgomery in place of Jamal Williams. They also brought in Graham Glasgow to sign for Evan Brown, and they also brought in a very familiar face in Marvin Jones to make up for the loss of DJ Chark. And of course, the biggest reason why they've made the winners list is because of the way they patched up their secondary. They brought in Emmanuel Moseley from the 49ers on a cheap contract. They brought in CJ Gardner-Johnson from the Eagles on a cheap contract, also snagging Cam Sutton from the Steelers for an extended deal. I thought retaining Alex Anzalone was going to be a big priority to them this offseason. They were able to do that as well. Between the Lions being able to attack their biggest need in the secondary as well as replace what they lost relatively well, I think they should be considered winners here. Next on the winners list, I do have the Eagles, simply because they were able to retain a lot more than I expected them to be able to. But don't get me wrong, they did lose a lot. Losing Javon Hargrave is no joke. Marcus Epps, Kaiser White, TJ Edwards, Andre Dillard. But to be able to sit back and say, I still have Fletcher Cox, I still have James Bradbury, I still have Jason Kelsey, still was able to get Brandon Graham back, and after being rumored to lose Darius Slay, they managed to find a restructuring agreement, so that was huge as well. So I would say despite their losses, they were able to retain pretty much most of their actual core. Not to mention they also added. Make up for the loss of Marcus Epps, they also brought in safety Terrell Edmonds from the Steelers. They were able to bring in Rashad Penny on an extremely cheap deal, and I think this is going to work out fantastically. I thought Rashad Penny was one of the best signings of free agency, to be honest with you. I know some people might not agree with me here, but they were able to hold on to most of the core that got them to the Super Bowl last year, and I consider that a massive win. Next on the winners list, I have the Carolina Panthers, who of course suffered the massive loss of DJ Moore. Outside of DJ, I mean, they did a great job of not only remediating the offense, but bolstering it for the rookie quarterback that they draft, who I anticipate to be CJ Stroud. Retaining center Bradley Bozeman was big. They brought in a backup in Andy Dalton, who I anticipate to be a big help to the development of the quarterback in his first two seasons. As far as skill positions go, they spent a little bit, but it made a lot of sense. Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, Miles Sanders. I assume it's a part of their future plans to add some youth to their skill positions, but for now, since you're anticipating a day one rookie starting quarterback, adding that type of veteran prowess around him is going to be excellent for his development. Assuming the guy they take isn't an absolute bust, I think they've done a fantastic job preparing their future, especially since their defense is ready to go. So I'd be on the lookout for the Carolina Panthers in 2023. Those are the teams I would consider to be the biggest of winners. The positional group, I would say, is definitely offensive linemen, especially if you were halfway decent, you probably had a bag thrown at you. The Broncos dished out cash. I mean, the guys they brought in aren't bad by any stretch, but 5 for 87.5 for Mike McGlinchey is insane. Ben Powers, 4 for 52. I thought that was a lot. I think this works out for Kansas City, to be fair, but they threw 4 for 80 at Jawan Taylor. Nate Davis got 3 for 30 from the Bears. Andrew Wiley got 3 for 24 from the Commanders. I mean, if you were at all a halfway decent offensive lineman in 2022, you definitely had some money coming your way. So that was a massive victory for that group. But the biggest winner of free agency out of any team, out of any position group, out of any other player is 100,000% tight end Josh Oliver, who got 3 years, $21 million total from the Minnesota Vikings. I have no clue what compelled the Vikings to pay a dude with 26 career receptions, $7 million over 3 years annually. But hey, good for Josh. This dude is by far the biggest winner of free agency, in my opinion. Before I move on to the losers, I wanted to touch on the Chicago Bears real quick because I know not having them on my winners list is going to raise a lot of eyebrows. Now, the biggest reason why I don't consider them to be ultimate winners is because their biggest move or their best transaction Jackson wasn't even really a part of free agency. It was the trade with the Panthers. When it actually came to free agency, in theory, their thought process of replacing Roquan Smith with two serviceable guys that have a lot of upside in TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds is proper thinking. But in my opinion, I'm not particularly sure that Tremaine Edmonds ends up being what they're kind of paying him to be. Tremaine is going from a system where he was just kind of a piece and he benefited from the veteran prowess around him. And now being the veteran, he now has to be the leader. And I think he was a leader for the Bills in some sense. But now he is the centerpiece of that Chicago Bears defense. That's a lot of pressure to bear. He's still a relatively young kid, and I think he's got a ton of upside. But up to this point, I'm not sure I'm too convinced that he can go from taking on the role he had in Buffalo to this bigger role over in Chicago. So we'll see how it plays out. But ultimately, I wasn't blown away by the free agency class. So they're not losers, but I didn't consider them winners either. Now for the losers of free agency, and I only had one team that I thought fit this description well enough because we really don't know how everything's going to play out at the end of the day. But as far as the Raiders go, I mean, it's a clear loss. They went from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo, and no matter what people try and tell you, that is a downgrade. Unless they draft a quarterback in the draft, their league-leading 25 transactions are going to mean absolutely nothing. So regardless of the value of all their contracts they signed, it just feels like they're lost. They're not going in any type of direction. They're not moving the needle. They're just kind of there. Like I said, unless they draft a quarterback, it feels like they went to free agency with zero purpose, just to kind of refill the quarterback position after cutting Derek Carr, overpaying Jimmy Garoppolo for 3 for $67.5. For targeting Jordan Poyer supposedly, then they pivoted to Marcus Epps. I'm not too sure what that was all about. Franchise tag Josh Jacobs, fine. Then they went and signed Jacoby Myers when they have Hunter Renfrow, who I'm thinking they might still trade, but until then, that was confusing. Also traded Darren Waller to the Giants. They also managed to lose Denzel Perryman to the Texans. I can't tell what their goal is, man. Like, are they rebuilding? Are they trying to gun for the Super Bowl? Either way, it just doesn't seem like they have a true direction or path in place. And regardless of the value of all the contracts they signed, this to me is a loss because they seem directionless. Now, the losing positional group is most definitely the running backs, and we all saw this coming. We didn't expect anybody to get a massive payday. It's just the nature of the position. These guys understand that, but still, I mean, seeing these big names get relatively little pay is pretty heartbreaking, at least from the perspective of these players. There's a pretty wealthy running back class as well. Of course, Pollard, Barkley, and Jacobs all caught the franchise tag, so they'll be playing 1 year, $10 million. Guys like Damian Harris, who people would have considered relatively underrated going into 2022, and even though he suffered with some injuries, still was pretty damn good. Only got 1 year for 1.7 from the Bills. I mean, that is pennies. Rashad Penny as well kind of falls under the Damian Harris umbrella, somebody that everybody really thinks is talented but has a hard time staying on the field, so they get a prove-it deal. Samaje Perine, one of the better backups in this league, one of the better pass protectors, goes to the Broncos at 2 years for $7.5. That's nothing. And the worst part is, this is the direction the market is trending, and it's not going to improve. It's just the nature of the position, and they are massive losers in the 2023 free agency class. Now for the biggest loser of free agency, and I'm sure you've heard this time and time again, but it is Lamar Jackson. He needed an agent, and it's unfortunate that things have gotten to the point they are at now. He's practically cornered. Unless some team magically changes their mind, Lamar's going to be left with either you don't play this season or you take whatever the Ravens are offering you, because like I said, nobody else is really interested. Regardless of Lamar's actual talent on the field, it is a massive risk to take for that amount of resources, that amount of capital. I mean, he's missed the final third of the last 2 seasons now. I know he came out and said he requested a trade back on March 2nd, and that news really didn't faze me or really alter the status of the situation. At the end of the day, Lamar Jackson is really left without any options, and now people are suggesting that he might not even play in 2023. I would understand the purpose of not playing, but I feel like every single time a player decides he's going to take a year off and hold out, it never ends up playing out for them in their favor. I think it's without a doubt that he's been the biggest loser of free agency up to this point. Those are my winners and losers of free agency. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you want to hit the bell to be notified when I upload, I'd appreciate that. You're going to go over to Twitter, follow me over there. I'd appreciate that as well. I have a TikTok down in my description that I think you should check out. And I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.
Talking about him, and you talking about him. But you know what you're not talking about? Hell!